welcome. Now, another issue that has plagued the country in recent weeks is insecurity. From the Boko Haram crisis in the northeast of the country to the issue of farmers' herders' crisis and armed banditry in the north central and northwest. In the past week, the focus, of course, has been on Zamfara state, and that is after dozens were killed in recent attacks in that state. The attacks are the latest in a series of incidents that has claimed more than 100 lives in the state in 2018 alone, including that of 17 police officers. Earlier in the year, the state governor, Abdulaziz Yari, resigned as the chief security officer of the state, though his critics point to the fact that he has failed on his part as governor. Now, his resignation did not have the desired effect as the killings continued and has become so bad that some political stakeholders have asked for a state of emergency to be declared in that state. What exactly is a state of emergency? Well, a state of emergency simply means the federal government will take over governance in that state and massively deploy soldiers to maintain peace there. And of course, when that happens, you will have a sole administrator appointed as, the governor of that state. Now, the sole administrator now appointed as the governor of that state. And that sole administrator now could be a retired military officer, in most cases, or retired military officer like we saw in the case of Ekiti. Now, leading the call for that state of emergency to be declared in Zamfara is a governorship candidate in the state now, Seidu Dan Sadao, who used to be a senator. Dan Sadao, as I said, a former senator, says President Muhammadu Buhari should embark on the move to rescue the state from bloodletting. The president, of course, has condemned the killing, but has yet to publicly state his opinion on the calls for a state of emergency. And, of course, the Minister of Internal Affairs was in that state recently, and he made a statement saying he was issuing a last warning now, not just to the bandits, but, to all those who are responsible for the violence. Joining me now to discuss this crisis further is a security analyst, Roy Okidieve. Thank you very much for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you.
Why do you think it has become so difficult to deal with this Zamfara violence?
Well, thank you, Deji.
Soldiers have been deployed?
Yes.
The killings have
No. Soldiers, when you say soldiers have been deployed, that means you have identified risk-prone areas and you have condoned them off. Okay? Now, we are talking about a crisis that erupts within. It's amongst the people. Let's look at the last one where people were harvesting tubers of sweet potato and some men just came and opened fire on them. And they came back in the evening. And still ransacked villages around that area. So when you say soldiers have been deployed, I start to wonder, are there known routes where these people come from and the soldiers are deployed? Are there known areas where they gather around to perpetrate and wait for information to perpetrate and soldiers have been deployed? Look, we have security agencies that should cascade down. There are responsibilities that should cascade down. There are also local government people, their councillors, elected by the people. We should not forget that there are non-state actors that are unarmed that should also complement security. The local government councillor, the local government chairman, okay, all of that council of the local government, they have the immediate purview.
Because they definitely would know who
they have the immediate purview. They have the immediate liaison. They are locals that were trusted with lives and property of the people. So when things like this start to happen, okay, let me give you an example of the Badu case. When it happened in Ikorodu, remember, when they started to clamp down on the village chiefs around there, we began to see the shrines where the shrines were, and the shrines were now locked up, and all that began to cascade down to the point where they emanate from. So let me tell you, Deji, if you have bandits running around like that loosely, you need to look at political intonations. You need to look at religious intonations. You need to look at vested interests. Now, if we talk about vested interests, Nigeria is one of the worst.
And these bandits we're talking about are basically, in most cases, cattle rustlers.
That's what I'm... No. If you say cattle rustlers, you are not identifying them properly. Let me tell you. They are part of the negative component in every society. If you look at the Yorubas, the Igbos, within the Igbos, you will see those that go for 419, still use their children for rituals, their sister, their brother. Go to the Yorubas, you will still see all those kind of components. But people can just come and throw a blanket to distract everybody. That it's religion, it's cultural. I think the use of drugs is one of the key implements in that area. Drug addiction to the armies of youths that are idle. And these idleness were created by the people that are suffering it today, the leaders of the day. The idleness started way back when I was in the army in Kaduna. You know, just coming out from duty, I would see a lot of people queued up in one gate, just getting akamu and pap and akara for the day. And the next morning they are there again. Nobody cares whether they go to school. Nobody cares if they have anything to do. That's for one. On the second area, funny enough, a lot of military, young trained military hands, they are dropping their rifles and they are leaving the combat zone. Where are they going to? Who cares to find out where they go to? Who cares to rehabilitate them and say, okay, you don't want to fight again, you are a deserter. But let's know what next. What next do you want to do? Because you are already a killing machine. You have been trained, you have tested battle, you have seen blood. Now, these guys that are dropping their rifles and running away from combat zone, nobody cares to gather them together. Nobody cares to trace them through their families, to rehabilitate, to find out how we can help you. And tramadol and codeine and all these drugs are just flying through those areas, becoming more useful than food. So the only thing you get out of when you are high is taste for blood. So my annoyance actually is that we created this thing. Can we destroy it? Can there just be these political bigwigs coming together to say, let's stop this bloodshed?
Do you think a state of emergency would solve the problem?
It won't solve it. Let me tell you why it won't solve it. There is no state where a state of emergency has solved anything. During curfews, remember, in Kaduna, during curfews, there were still mayhem. During curfews, there were still people being killed. If you put a state of emergency there, you are just bringing somebody who has been in retirement or who has been waiting for any government appointment, has been lobbying. Go to Abuja. A lot of retired personnel are lobbying for positions. When
you have that, soldiers would be deployed and everywhere.
When soldiers are deployed, what mandates do they have? Do they have the backup of the DSS? Do they have the appropriate liaison with the police?
They definitely would.
Do they have all of that? When soldiers are deployed, the next thing the international community comes and say there is human rights abuses because they don't know how to coordinate civilian civility for them to come back to a thriving society. They don't have that training. Their training is to combat and to deter armed incursion. So we have a problem. And that problem is where we are now. So maybe we should talk about solutions.
So, and talking about solutions now, if you say a state of emergency would not work, then what exactly would work for Zamfara State?
You see, in that state that you see, they need to look at the unpoliced areas. You see, everybody likes to come and say, let's sign treaty of peace. Let's do this. Let's beg this person to calm down. Let's beg this person to talk to these people to calm down. When you calm them down, what next? We need to engage the youths. We need to engage them. Before you engage the youths, you need to identify them. You recall the militant amnesty. You need them to come and drop their rifles. You say, okay, you want to do this, you want to do that. All of them drop their arms. They started to take numbers. You started to know who they are. That helped when the amnesty had a relapse and they wanted to go back to picking arms. You know, Tompolo and all of them were now identified. Their key commanders were now identified. So it was difficult to build new grounds. Once you want to go into Zamfara State, you need to bring out those youths. You need to identify them. You need to throw a carrot before you use the stick. The carrot will attract them out.
But it appears that the carrot has actually been used, but we're still not getting results.
The carrot we are using is not long-term. When I'm telling you about long-term, I want to ask the youths who go into them, who go between them, amongst them. We find out, are there ones that want to get education? Are there the ones that want to get into industrial engagement? Are there those that have intelligence that could be trained abroad? Do you know that when you go into them like that, you begin to carry out the ones that are there but have some levels of intelligence.
But there should be something that can be done to prevent some of these attacks from happening in the first place.
No, to prevent the attacks. It's not to prevent the attacks from reoccurring again. Now, to prevent the attacks, you need to put in security paraphernalia on ground. There must be police presence, sir. If you go to those communities, you will see that there is no police presence. Now, if you don't have enough police, we agree. But you have a local government there. Within that local government, there are ex-servicemen. If you look at the US and some other countries, there were those that left the army that became rangers. Some of those forest regions, they need forest rangers that were ex-servicemen that came home to relax. They have farms. Unfortunately, let's not even go towards our late former chief defense staff. He went to his farm. There are the presidential aspirant in the West. He has a farm. Shehu Shagari, our former president, has a farm. So many of us have farms when we leave the job. Now, can't they use that to build a pseudo-army to begin to feed the amount of police officers that they could have? If both of us are police officers and we need to go and police an area that is not big enough, that we are not much to cover it, then we know that we have a retinue of ex-servicemen on ground. Those ex-servicemen could have come from the DSS, the police, and wherever, and the abscondees. A lot of pool abscondees that don't want to fight Boko Haram, they ran away.
Okay, now because we talked about that, because I mean we know that it's a crime anyway in both in the police and the military, you know, for people to just abscond. And because you talked about abscondment now, I want to get your take on this, the recent incident we had in the police force. Policemen now, mobile policemen who were sent to the military special forces training school to be trained and then to help the military in the fight against Boko Haram. It's not as if they are being asked to go to the front line and start engaging these insurgents. What they are asked to do is probably, take charge of an area that has been liberated or all of that. And then you have over 100 of them absconded, not wanting to go there.
You know when the news first broke out and the IG came out to say it's false, before the names came out. When I saw the names, especially on some trusted media, like alede.com and your own platforms too, I now looked at it. I said, okay, if we have names, these are people we could reach to say, okay, this and this are the reasons why we left the training camp. Sir, if you want to deploy police officers and you actually want them to hold second-level defensive system, defensive positions, then have you actually shown them the second-level defensive position they should hold? The mobile police force was brought on board, remember, when they were going to go out for training because of secondary school riots of those days, and maybe prison breaks in Benin prison and all that.
But there's no way we can excuse this behavior.
No, you can't excuse it. Let me get there. Now that this issue has happened like this, I'm telling you that you need to throw out a net, you need to recall. When you recall, you now need to put them in a rehabilitation center. After the war in Afghanistan, we have people that were coming from post-traumatic disorder cases. If you don't recall and put a track on them, you have another set of people. Policemen in service, they are engaging in armed robbery. Military people in service, they are engaging in armed robbery. This is another area of a challenge that we have right now, I'm telling you. If you don't run into it and try to bring them in as a pool, during the 2019 election, you have a lot of people now that could handle arms.
The arrest, of course, has been ordered. And to make matters worse, we understand they're left with their service rifles.
So that is the challenge. Now, recall my other comments the other day we were sitting down here. A service rifle can be traced. If I can trace, see, we need technology in this country, okay? If you live with your service rifle, it's better you throw it away somewhere. Because these are gadgets, these are devices that could be traced if you go into proper technological advancement. The other day, the Chief of Army Staff announced that soldiers will be given uniforms that could be tracked. I think that is also an advancement, but should not have come into the media space, okay, because it's for their personal security. All equipments can be traced. So if we don't want to get to that level, we'll begin to see such cases. And recall, as you see men on the loose,
it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. And you know, I don't want to say things that will make us look like we are against the government. I'm trying to manage the information that we have. Now, these guys that have absconded with their rifles, they are trained mobile policemen. Now, when we have mobile policemen deployed to service maybe politicians, schools, churches, and VIPs, and all that,
then you
those
don't
are
expect
comfort zone. You want them to now leave that comfort zone to go to battle area. Then I looked at the names. Most of the names are people from the West and all that. Country. Why don't we mix it up to a balance? Why don't we put, you know, even soldiers in the field now, they are telling us that the Hausa guys are being posted to Bayelsa, Port Harcourt, and all that. And
I don't even want us to go into
all of that.
It's not.
So when I saw the names, I now said, okay, we need to recall these people. We need to recall the military people that have absconded from battle area. We need to create a kind of recall and reassemblage, or else if they are let in the loose, we're also in trouble.
Obviously, they can't be let go like that. There's an order for the arrest, and even though the police is denying this, but you know, you made a very strong point. When you have a situation where, you know, mobile policemen are just providing guard services now for, you know, highly politically exposed persons now, it's a comfort zone. You now ask this man who has not been doing any job of policing, so to speak, serious job of policing, to go to the front line. Of course, you would expect that kind of person
Maybe
to just
you should also help us contribute towards the drug angle. You remember the tramadol and the...
Absolutely. It's a big issue.
Now we are not looking at drug sales. Anywhere you see banditry, you should understand there are catchment of financial inflow. Maybe those farmers now, they needed to move crops up and down. They need to pay. They need to pay for safe passage because those areas are not policed. Maybe there is a rivalry clash amongst them for them to go and do that. If left to me, I will begin to look at sale of drugs. I will begin to look at areas of operation. I will begin to look at taxing. Who are paying tax in that area? Who are they paying the tax into? You know, some of these things happen in ISIS-occupied places in Syria right now, where people are even building drug factories, drug manufacturing factories. And that is what Israeli planes and US planes are trying to bomb most of the time. Because it becomes a cartel. And once they have that running, they begin to use those funds to finance procurement of arms and paying of mercenaries.
Dr. David, thank you very much for coming on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. On Deji 360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country. I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly. God forbid that I go to join that band.
Deji 360, providing clarity to issues.